Welcome to the Zen Studies Podcast. I'm your host, Domio Burke. Thanks to new supporting member of the podcast, Ksenia from Berlin, Germany. Periodically, I should mention that you can practice Zen with me online. My Zen center, Brightway Zen, has a vibrant cloud Zendo via Zoom, as well as what we call our Dirt Zendo, our physical practice space in Portland, Oregon, on the west coast of the United States. We have 2 main practice days of the week on Tuesdays and Sundays, including Zazen and a class or Dharma talk. And you can participate in either the Cloud or Dirt Zendos. We offer full translations of our schedules for 8 other time zones, including the UK and Europe. Find out more by visiting zenstudiespodcast.com and clicking Online Practice Opportunities in the top menu, or visit brightwayzen.org. So, on the meditation seat and off, we may experience significant insights, realizations that shift our understanding of ourselves and the world, and help relieve suffering for ourselves or for others. Insights may be sudden or gradual, major or minor, but we naturally want to be able to hold on to them instead of forgetting them and going back to our previous way of thinking or being. Yet sometimes these insights seem to slip away or fade with time. Our efforts to hold on to them sometimes seems to cause them to recede even further. How can we integrate insights into our lives and practice? So first, let's explore the nature of insight. Here's some definitions of the word from dictionary.com. Insight. 1. An instance of apprehending the true nature of a thing, especially through intuitive understanding, such as an insight into 18th century life. 2. Penetrating mental vision or discernment, the faculty of seeing into inner character or underlying truth. 3. Psychology. 3 definitions within psychology. So A, an understanding of relationships that sheds light on or helps solve a problem. B, in psychotherapy, the recognition of sources of emotional difficulty. And C, an understanding of the motivational forces behind one's actions, thoughts, or behavior, self-knowledge. So the first definition includes the word apprehend, which means to grasp the meaning of, understand, especially intuitively, perceive. A good definition of Buddhist insight includes many aspects of these standard definitions: apprehension, seeing underlying truth, the recognition of sources of difficulty. I offer the following definition of insight as we mean it in Buddhism. An insight is apprehension of something which subsequently relieves suffering or increases wisdom, compassion, or skillfulness. In other words, an insight furthers us on the path of practice. I particularly like using the word apprehension when it comes to insight, as opposed to understanding, which could be limited to the intellect. Apprehension, on the other hand, is experiential, including the mind, but not limited to it. It's easy to overthink the process of apprehension or experiential insight We may wonder how on earth we can know anything without the mind, or how we can exclude the mind from the process. How can we register an insight consciously if it's, say, physical or energetic? But apprehension is really not a big deal, as long as we don't overthink it. Most of what we're aware of is registered through all of our senses, including our mind, in a natural and integrated way. For example, how do you know whether it's warm or cool where you are right now? How do you know what time of day it is? Whether you're safe? What your relationship is to the content of this podcast? Insights arise most readily when we're not dividing body and mind, when we're just ourselves. This is why many Zen texts refer to a person as body-mind, body-mind. Sometimes insights come with words to explain or describe them, and sometimes they don't. Regardless of the mechanics of an insight, by definition, Buddhist insight causes a positive change in us, at least for the moment. At least for the moment, our orientation to the world is different. Our understanding of ourselves is different. Some delusion is seen through, or some new possibility opens up. Significantly, Buddhist insights are about matters directly related to your life. Now, there's many questions in the world for which we cannot directly, personally apprehend the answers. Is there life on other planets? What is the best way to reduce crime in a society? What's going on in your partner's head? Is there life after death? We can learn about many things intellectually or through trial and error, and what we learn may even inform us at a deep level. For example, seeing pictures of other galaxies. But we can't apprehend directly. However, according to Buddhism, we can apprehend everything we need to in order to live our best lives. In order to relieve suffering for ourselves and those around us and increase wisdom, compassion, and skillfulness. The matters we can't directly apprehend, fortunately, are generally questions which do not tend to edification or do not further us on the path of practice. It may be fun or useful even to know the answers to such questions, but they're not central to our practice. Insights may be small or major, sudden or gradual. They may involve a radical change in the way we see the world, or only a subtle shift in how we see one particular aspect of our lives. Generally speaking, though, there's at least one moment where we go, "Oh," as we recognize the change in our understanding. The original insight in Buddhism was, of course, the Buddha's. And I'm going to share it with you. This passage is translated by Thanissaro Bhikkhu, and he uses the word stress to translate the Pali word dukkha, which is often translated as suffering. And also in the passage, it talks about mental fermentations, which are sensuality, becoming, and ignorance, or basically the mental and emotional phenomena which perpetuate suffering for beings. So this is the Buddha's big aha. Quote, "When the mind was thus concentrated, purified, bright, unblemished, rid of defilement, pliant, malleable, steady, and attained to imperturbability, I directed it to the knowledge of the ending of the mental fermentations. I discerned, as it was actually present, that this is stress. This is the origination of stress. This is the cessation of stress. This is the way leading to the cessation of stress. My heart, thus knowing, thus seeing, was released from the fermentation of sensuality, released from the fermentation of becoming, released from the fermentation of ignorance. With release, there was the knowledge, released. I discerned that birth is ended, the holy life fulfilled, the task done. End quote. I'm not going to discuss here what the Buddha realized in this passage. I'm just sharing this to note his substantial aha. And if you do want to know more about what he realizes in this passage, see episode 9, Shakyamuni Buddha's Enlightenment. What did he realize? So basically, the Buddha had been searching for an answer to the question of human suffering and found an answer in a way that radically altered the way he saw the world and relieved him of suffering in a profound and lasting way. In some of my previous talks and podcast episodes, I've called smaller moments of insight, or even larger moments of insight, enlightenments. So if you want to hear more, episode 200, Story of My Spiritual Journey, Part 4, Enlightenment. Now, classically, Buddhist enlightenment is either Kensho, which is seeing the true nature of the self, which is really just a significant early step on the path of spiritual development, or the word refers to a life-altering realization like the Buddha's. However, most of our progress on the path, perhaps almost all of our progress on the path, occurs in smaller steps, in, if you will, enlightenments. These are insights which make a difference, however small, and add up over time. I shared an example of such an insight in episode 200 about my own spiritual journey. Now, all of my life, up to the point of this story, I had been troubled by the question, what is the meaning of life? To me, life seemed okay, but it also seemed to have no point. Certainly no deeper meaning that would render acceptable all the misery in the world. One day, however, I decided to try walking down the hallway at work without the question. Without the question, what is the meaning of life? I didn't arrive at an acceptable answer to the question. I just temporarily set it aside. As I did so, I realized how many assumptions went along with the question. Basically, it was based on a fixed view of the world, which was essentially closed to any input except the input I wanted. And I couldn't even formulate what answer I hoped to find. I realized that insight into life's mystery, which is what I really wanted, was not going to come to me as long as I kept insisting on quote-unquote meaning as I defined it. And ever since the moment of this insight, I have been free from the angst that a search for meaning used to cause in me. Now, if somebody had said to me the day before that insight, asking the meaning of life is just making you miserable, you should drop the question, that wouldn't have helped me at all. In fact, it probably would have made me resistant to doing anything that appeared to be following the person's advice. Insight isn't just a matter of the content of what we realized. What matters is that we realized it for ourselves, our body-mind, experientially, directly, in real time. Oh, we exclaim. And usually later, if we describe what we realized to someone else, it doesn't sound very remarkable at all. And yet, it made a real difference to us. usually a lasting and positive change in how we think of ourselves or relate to the world. So how do we hold on to our insights? How do we avoid forgetting them so we don't slip back into our old way of seeing or thinking, speaking, or behaving? Sometimes this isn't a problem, but sometimes it is. Over time in Buddhism and Zen, you may pick up the understanding that we shouldn't hold on to insights, that we should just let them go. Now, this reflects the reality that a certain way of trying to hold onto them is ineffective and problematic. We may want to preserve the memory of the experience of insight, recalling what we thought or saw or felt. Often an insight comes along with a sense of release, relief, or even joy. And we naturally hope those feelings will continue to arise in association with what we have learned. We may want to preserve the sense of a significant shift in being that the insight brought about, whether that was a shift in perception, in the way we think of ourselves, or the way we relate to the world. An experience of insight may feel empowering and give us hope. We may want to hold on to the clarity of vision we experienced in the moment of insight, or to the content of the insight itself, so we can be sure to carry with us what we have learned. You might describe all of these efforts as trying to hold on to preserve the experience of insight. And naturally, we're going to fail at this. We can never recreate an experience. And the more special the experience, the less likely we'll be able to recreate it. And this is true of any kind of experience. Love, intimacy, joy, being moved by beauty, seeing something for the first time, feeling incredible because of maybe taking a drug for the first time, etc. When we try to hold on to an experience of insight, the precious thing inevitably recedes in our memory. Although it may have seemed incredibly vivid and significant and life-altering at the time, we find the memory getting more and more fuzzy. It no longer evokes the same feelings. We may even start forgetting exactly what it was we realized, or when recalled, the realization no longer seems very remarkable. The experience starts to feel stale, and we may feel regret, sadness, grief, disappointment, or even pain at the loss of something that seemed to promise us greater clarity, peace, or a better way of being. When we experience insight, then, it's very tricky. What now? If we try to hold on to the experience, we're doomed to fail. So maybe then we do the good Zen thing and let it go. To some of us, this means dismissing or pushing away the insight, not daring to appreciate, contemplate, or celebrate it, because we might get caught in trying to hold on to the experience and then suffer disappointment and prove we're not a good student. What can we do? We can start by differentiating between seeking to integrate our insight and trying to hold on to the experience of it. The memory of the experience will inevitably fade. And we may feel some regret about this, and that's okay. But we're used to this. We all know that we sometimes experience wonderful things and we can't hold on to them. So the experience can't be held on to, which includes the sense of newness, of the new perspective being remarkable. It includes feelings of hope or joy or freedom, and our inevitably inflated hopes about what a difference this might make to our lives. It includes the experience of exceptional clarity as we suddenly apprehended something we needed to know. but we want to hold on to what we have learned. And hold on is probably not a good term. Suggests we're going to try to grab on or try to keep it from changing. But we don't want to forget. We want to integrate the positive shift in our understanding and to continue the learning process. I'll offer 4 recommendations for integrating insights, and I'm sure you'll have some of your own. 1. Celebrate and appreciate the insight with open hands. Insights or enlightenments are always wonderful, however small. For as long as the memory lasts, let it arise. Appreciate the insight with gratitude, while reminding yourself that the memory of the experience itself will fade. And the contour and texture of what you have learned will also change. Being prepared for this might help you be less confused or upset about it if or when the memory fades or the insight feels like it might be slipping away. 2. Gently explore the edges of the insight to see what else it might lead to. And try to do this with natural curiosity instead of with an agenda. Think of the insight as a living thing, a being you can scare away if you're too aggressive or impatient. It's usually not very satisfying to ruminate on an insight and try to squeeze more juice out of it. However, the insight might have implications, which will become obvious if you spend some time with it. 3. Allow the insight to make changes in you. This is not an active process, nor is it a passive process. This isn't about the executive I analyzing the insight, trying to get more out of it, or making a plan for how to change. Nor is it about us checking out or distracting ourselves. The process of integrating an insight is like our zazen, like our life. Things are best, more lively. Things go well when we offer undivided presence as much as we can, but without adding the narrative of executive I. Our zazen and mindfulness practice help us learn how to be present without necessarily trying to control what's happening. So lots of zazen and mindfulness practice are ways to integrate insights. 4. Trust the process and know you will never be the same after your insight. Sometimes insights last, and that's great. Other times, though, we lose track of exactly what they were about or whether they resulted in a lasting change in our thinking, speech, or behavior. Occasionally, we may wonder why an insight didn't have a bigger impact on our lives. I mean, how can we continue acting the way we do, feeling and thinking the way we do after what we realized? I've always found comforting these words from my Dharma grandmother, Roshi Jiu Kennet. Having seen a ghost, you can never again be someone who has not seen a ghost. No matter what we're consciously aware of, our insights change us. The change may not be what we expected or as dramatic as we'd hoped, but the insights inevitably become part of who we are. That's it for today. I will be back with a new episode in December. I hope you'll tune in. Thanks for listening.